You are eligible to apply for a family reunion visa in Norway. If you fall under this category, you are the person I'm talking about today. Hi guys, welcome back to this channel, and on this video I have decided to bring you through the process of a family reunion visa in Norway. I am currently in Norway with my daughter on a family reunion visa, and I decided to take you through this process, the documents required, like the way you go through that whole process in order to acquire that visa. It's something quite easy, and I believe you can do it on your own if you follow everything that I have mentioned in this video. So everything that I will talk about is based on my personal experience, but I believe it's something that will help you as you go through that process yourself. Welcome. First thing to note when you're applying for a family reunion visa is that the first thing you will be asked for is the reference person. I currently applied for my family reunion visa from Kenya. That's my origin country. So these requirements vary based on your country of origin. So the first thing you do, you go to the UDI website. That is the website you use when you're applying for any kind of visa in Norway. So it's called the UDI. So when you go to that website, you will find the first question being, which country are you applying from? So in this case, you have to indicate the country you come from. So after that, you will be asked two main questions, which are the reference person and the applicant. The reference person is the person who is acquainted to you in Norway, and in a family reunion visa, the reference person most of the time a spouse, a registered spouse. So you might be moving to your spouse in Norway. You are one of the persons that is eligible for this kind of visa. The other person that is eligible for this visa is a cohabitant. So if you have been living with a person even though you are not married officially, you are eligible for this kind of visa. The family reunion visa is what we are talking about in this video. A person who is moving to Norway to get married. So if you have fiancé in Norway, you are eligible for this kind of application. Another person is a child who is under 18 that is moving to live with the parents in Norway. This also will go through this kind of application. There is also a provision for a child who is over 18 who is moving to live with the parents in Norway. A parent who is moving to live with the children in Norway. If the parent is moving to live with the children in Norway for a period of 9 months and above, you need to apply for this visa, the family reunion visa. Another person is a parent who is moving to children who are under the age of 18 who live in Norway. You are also eligible for this. The next one is a parent that is moving to live with the children in Norway. Note that the first one I talked of a parent who is moving to visit children in Norway for over 9 months. Of course, for this longer period, you need a resident permit. That is why you need to apply for this family reunion visa. And the next is a parent who is moving to totally live with the children in Norway. In both cases, you are eligible to apply for a family reunion visa. Another person who is eligible to apply for this kind of visa is a child who has full siblings in Norway. So if you have your siblings in Norway, full siblings, you are eligible for this. And then a person who had a Norwegian parent during birth is also eligible for this kind of visa. Other family members can also apply for this kind of visa. So if you fall under this category, you are the person I'm talking about today. You are eligible to apply for a family reunion visa in Norway. The first question you will get if you are one of these persons that I've mentioned and you are applying for this kind of permit is that if you have lived together with the reference person who is in Norway in another EU country other than Norway. So this question will determine your next step. So in this application, what I figured out is that you answer a question to be taken to the next level. So you have to really make sure you have a collective information of your reference person, who I said is the person who is living in Norway that is acquainted to you, and also about yourself, who is a relative or a close family member to the reference person. So the applicant in this case is the person that is applying to go and live with the reference person in Norway. After you have answered whether you have lived in this person in any European Union country, that is when you're taken to the next step, which is the requirements for both of you. You, the applicant, and the reference person. The first requirement before you go through your application process is a fee. This visa is not free. You must pay for it. So you must be psychologically prepared that you have to pay for this kind of visa. In my case, I paid $1,000 US. So this also, I think, depends on the conversion fee of your country. I believe as you apply, you're given a figure of how much you're supposed to pay. On the requirements, if you're moving to Norway to live with your spouse, you must have validly entered into that marriage. It's not a forced marriage, it's not a convenience marriage. It must be a marriage that has been validly entered into. You must have plans to live together in Norway. If you're applying for this visa, you must be sure you have plans to live together in Norway. You're not just applying to go and then move to a different country. You must be sure you're gonna live with your spouse in Norway. It must not be a forced marriage. They do thorough research on these cases and they will know if you're lying to them. So it is important that your marriage is genuinely entered into. Another requirement is that it must not be a marriage of convenience. If you're applying to move to live with your spouse, your marriage must not be a marriage of convenience. The other one is that you must be more than 24 years old, and this applies to you, the applicant and the reference person. So both the applicant and the reference person must be more than 24 years old. That is during the time of my application. Remember, these things change with time. The visa fee might change, the requirements might change. So based on the year or the period you're applying into, the changes may vary a little bit. Those requirements are the requirements that you need for both of you. Now, there is also the requirements for you who is applying for this visa. We go to the requirements of the reference person, who is the person who is inviting you from Norway or who you are moving to live with in Norway. And this, I believe, applies to all the cases. The requirements of the person living in Norway, who in this case should be your spouse, if you're moving to live with your spouse. The reference person must be having an income of 988 Norwegian crowns per year. So if the person you're moving to in Norway is not earning about this amount, I believe there is another process that you have to go through. But in this case, one of the requirements is that the person inviting you or your reference person has an income of that amount. This amount is adjusted in May each year. So based on the year in which you're applying, this may vary. So you should check on that as you apply. The requirements on that amount, on that figure, may vary. The next requirement for the reference person is that you cannot receive any help from NAV. That is the social help. In Norway, there are people who receive help from the government. I think they call it the NAV, the social welfare or the social help. So if your spouse or the person you're moving to live in Norway is getting this kind of help, I think you miss on that requirement. So they must not be receiving any help from NAV for the last 12 months. In this case, I also noted that these people, even the amount that I'm talking about, they should be earning the amount within that year that you are applying for the visa and a year after you get into Norway. So they must be at work during that period. And also they must not have received any help from the social help. They must not have received the social help within that period also. So we go to the process that we go through as we apply for this family immigration visa. Number one, you have to print the checklist and gather the necessary information. Remember, the checklist varies based on the country that you entered as you began the process. So it might vary for Asia, Africa, and all those other countries involved in those continents. So based on where you come from, that is how the checklist will be. Print out the checklist, gather all the information that you will need, and then fill in the application form. The application form is right there, so you have to fill it in. And I believe that this process, one tip that I can give as you start to fill in this application, make sure you have gathered all the documents that are required before you begin this application, as this will make your work way easier. So you don't have to start applying when you don't have the documents with you. The documents will really guide you as you do your application. So fill in the application form. After filling in the application form, hand in the application to the visa collection office, because in my case I handed into VFS Kenya. So in every country, some countries might require you to deliver to the embassy, some might require you to deliver to VFS. So it depends on who you are delivering to. The hardest part is not the application. The hardest part is all the documents needed are well put. So these documents will guide you based on the checklist. So I might not mention all the documents that you will need because they might vary based on the country where you come from. So in this case, make sure that you read your checklist quite well. A hint I can give you is use a marker pen. Use a colored pen to tick as you check the documents that you have in hand, because as I have told you, the documents are very important to have as you do the application. And the application process is quite easy as long as you have all the documents in the checklist. After that, in my case, my application was handed into the embassy by VFS. So when I went to VFS, it was quite easy because I had everything that I needed. I had checked out that I have all the documents. And so they handed it to the embassy. What do you need to do to know what is in your checklist? You must type in the applicant's citizenship. So if you're a citizen of Kenya, you must type in that you're a citizen of Kenya. If you're a citizen of India, you must fill in that you're a citizen of India. And so applies to other countries. And you must also answer some questions about the reference person's situation. They want to know whether you know the reference person quite well. After this small process, you get a list that shows all the documents that you will need during this application process and to hand into the embassy. In this process, there are some forms that you will find in this application that you must fill in, and they are part of your application, so you must take them very seriously. First form that you will need is a declaration form declaring that the reference person has not received any help from the Norwegian Labour and Welfare Organization, that is the NAV. This self-declaration will be sent to you by your reference person. If you receive this form from your reference person, that is one of the main documents that you will need as you submit your documents. The second form that you will need is a declaration of relationship form. This form is to declare that the relationship between you and the reference person, who is the person you will move to be with in Norway. The third form, and this applies if you are moving with children, like in my case, is a consent form to show that both the parents have consented to you moving with the kid in Norway. In case you are moving or you're planning to relocate to Norway with a child, you must fill in this consent form. So this form is for minors. If you are not moving with a minor, I believe you don't need it. If you're moving to live with your spouse, there is also a form with questions. It's like a questionnaire of questions between you and your spouse. This, I believe, is to make them know whether you know your spouse really well. So these are like questions between the two of you. The other form that you will need is a form to declare why you cannot hand in some of the documents. So if you have some missing documents that are in the checklist, you have to fill in a form declaring why you cannot hand in those documents, and you must have a very good argument. So in case you don't have any document that is requested of, you can fill in this form. After you have made sure that you have all these documents at hand, then you can send in the application. Remember, you have to hand in the application online and manually. So you fill in the application process and send it in, and also deliver the documents at the embassy or at the VFS office. And in this case, about payment, you make the payment online. You will use your bank card to make the payment online. In my case, I didn't have to go with cash money to pay for the visa fee, but there is an amount of money that I paid to VFS for their service, and this is not much. So the only big amount that you have to pay in is this, that you have to use your card to pay in for the visa, and that is online. After you have done all this process and handed in the documents at the embassy or at the VFS office, now you will receive an email from the Norwegian embassy. You will receive an email to show that they have received your registration for this permit. And in the email, you will receive a reference number. And this is the reference number that will be used all through your application. I believe as you take the documents, you have noted every document that you need in your checklist, and that is a signed cover letter, that is the application form that is signed, a passport photo if you're applying from abroad, because if you're applying from Norway, they don't need the photo as you have already visited the police. So in this application, if you have visited Norway and you want to apply for a resident permit, this is also for you. You also need the power of the attorney if you're not making this application yourself. If someone else is doing it for you, maybe a lawyer or a friend or anyone else, or even your reference person in Norway is the one who is handling this process for you, you have to hand in the power of the attorney. That is a form to show that you have given this, you have consented to this person making the application on your behalf. Then after that, you have to print out the checklist, sign it. That is as you deliver the document. You have to have your identity documents, and your identity documents are your birth certificate that is certified. In my case, coming from Kenya, they needed me to legalize my birth certificate, which I did. So this, as I said, is based on the country that you reside from. So in my case, they needed certification of some of my documents. So if this applies to you, you have to make sure you legalize, or you have apostille, or that process for your documents before you hand them in. And then form about you and your spouse. A copy of the reference person's passport is needed, and this is also supposed to be legalized. Remember, the documents from Norway are also supposed to have apostille. You need to have a marriage certificate. In my case, I had a letter of no impediment to marriage. I have that video. You can watch it if you want to know the process of acquiring a letter of no impediment to marriage. After that, you have to have a divorce or a death certificate if your reference person was married before. If you or your reference person was married before, you need to have a divorce or a death certificate. Then documents about the reference person's job. So in this case, they demand a 3-month payslip document to show that you paid tax. You paid tax for the last three months, I think. You need a declaration that this person has not received any help from NAV. Then your work is done. It's as simple as that. I personally don't believe that you should go paying out lawyers to help you in this, because it's quite a simple process. The only secret here is that you have all the documents in your checklist at hand. From there, your documents are handed in. the embassy sends you an email that they have received your documents. And in case you have missed out on any document, they usually send you an email to give you a short period to hand in the documents, like to email the documents or to send them in person, in case you have missed on anything. Because in my case, there is a document that I had forgotten, and they sent me an email and I sent it back to them. I handed it in to VFS and that was done. And from there you find an email from the UDI, like every month they were sending me an email every month regarding my case. Personally, I believe the email was coming every 17th, or it was varying between 15th to 17th of every month, and they were telling me like, this we are still working on your case, we will let you know what happens. We are still working on your case, we'll let you know what happens. And finally, after only 4 months, no interview, no nothing, I got my response, and it was a yes. So don't you give up. If you're doing this process, it is possible, it is doable by you. You just need to make sure that you have all these documents in place, and you believe in yourself and you can do it. And that's it. I believe you have enjoyed watching this. During this process, I believe you have to exercise patience. It is the only thing that will help you pull through. And also avoid worrying, because worrying will not help you in any way. If you're sure you did the whole process right, I believe you will succeed. So during this process, I would advise you to wait. Keep waiting and believe that you're going to have a positive report. The Bible says that they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. So keep on waiting and know that your waiting will not be forever. Joy comes in the morning. Your morning is going to dawn and you are going to receive your results positively. So keep trusting, keep waiting, keep believing. That's my word for you. That's my parting shot for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Until the next one, I wish you a blessed time. Have a good one. Bye.